How did a crazy woman end the decades-long feud between mountain man Jeremiah Johnson and the Crow Native Americans? Crazy Woman was the nickname of Jane Morgan, a New England housewife and mother who lived in the mountains of Montana in the mid-1800s. Johnson met her soon after her family was destroyed by Blackfoot warriors. He helped her bury her children and the scalp of her missing husband. And for the next 20 years, he brought her supplies to help her survive in her lonely cabin. Even while his deadly feud with the Crow tribe heated up, until she passed away after 20 years in the mountains. Soon after, he chose to visit where she had lived alone for all those years. As described in the book Crow Killer, in the spring of 1869, the trappers John Johnson and his friend X. Beadler entered a belt of heavy timber in Musselshell River country, then out of the timber and into the clearing. They dismounted by what was obviously an empty cabin. In the 1972 film Jeremiah Johnson, he finds a settler named Quaylen, who shows him a monument the Crows built in his honor. But in the book, the cabin was empty, and the monument was actually the grave of Jane Morgan. The Crow Killer led the way past the cabin to Mrs. Morgan's 4 mounds, still clearly marked, but long unattended. The Crow Killer walked on past to a 5th grave, off to one side, under a huge cairn of stones 8 feet or more in height. "You knowed she was dead?" Beadler asked. "I knowed," Johnson said, and he did explain to Beadler how she had died of starvation. He walked around her cairn. "Crows piled up these stones," he said matter-of-factly. "Why not Blackfoot's?" "Blackfoot's hated her and was scared to come hyar." Part of what made the Crows' gift so meaningful is that they gave her a Christian burial next to her children, instead of their own traditional style of burial, as described in the 1935 book The Crow Indians. There were 2 main forms of disposal, either in the fork of a tree or on a scaffold of 4 forked poles. Beadler concluded the Crows had given such a burial to Crazy Woman out of respect for Johnson, their greatest enemy, her friend. The 2 mountain men rode to Fort Hawley in Montana to trade their furs, then Johnson rode out alone. He knew that there was an encampment of Crows somewhere between the mouth of the Musselshell River and the Judith River, some of them, likely, the very Crows who had built a cairn for Crazy Woman. After a feud of almost a quarter century, the Crow Killer was ready to make peace with the Crows. Braver, more devoted warriors, he knew, had never loosed an arrow. And the body of Crazy Woman had not been left to be torn by wolves. Johnson managed to sneak up on a Crow chief named Gray Bear. He had his palms out in the universal sign of peace, even as Gray Bear half drew his tomahawk. Noticing that Johnson did not reach for his weapons, the chief let his weapon slide back into his belt. "You are the white hunter who long ago took the trail against us," he replied. "You are the liver eater." "Right the first whack," said the Crow Killer, "but I've come to end all that. Crazy Woman has a monument. She was buried by crows." Gray Bear said that White Badger and his braves had built the old woman's cairn. "Crow warriors?" "Yes, Crow warriors," Gray Bear said, "to honor a white woman touched by the Great Spirit, and to scorn the Blackfeet," he added. There were exchanges of gifts to be arranged yet with White Badger. Johnson could count on Gray Bear's passing the word at once that the Crow Killer desired friendship. Though he made peace with the Crow tribe, Johnson was not done punishing the Blackfeet for what they did to Jane Morgan and her family. In 1871, he and some friends were relaxing in his cabin when he discovered Blackfeet had snuck into his corral and stolen their horses. The men decided to leave before they were trapped and killed, but first— "One more chore 'fore we go," said Johnson. "One more chore for Crazy Woman." He took 2 bread pans from the wall and dumped a large measure of flour in each. Next he took a large can from the rude shelf, dumped perhaps half its contents into the flour, and mixed thoroughly before calling to Delle for water. As the mountain men watched Johnson cook, one of the older men explained to a younger that the last ingredient was Wolfer's strychnine, a strong poison, which results in muscular convulsions and eventually death through asphyxia. They left the feast for their enemies, and Johnson never went back to reckon his score with the Blackfeet. But he heard later from another traveler that 29 Blackfoot skeletons were later found in the canyon outside the cabin. And what happened to John Morgan, the long-lost husband of Crazy Woman? Johnson learned that Crazy Woman's husband had escaped from the Blackfeet. Morgan never went near the Musselshell River, never saw his wife. Perhaps he too was crazy, or had simply lost his memory. In the mountain man's code, a man's decisions and his silence about them were his own concern. If you'd like to visit Jane Morgan's cabin today, I doubt anyone knows exactly where it was. These scenes were filmed in Utah, not Montana. But you can visit the Crazy Mountains near the town of Big Timber. There are plenty of beautiful places to visit. You can rent a cabin up in the hills. Maybe a cabin like this. Probably not this one. You can go hiking, fishing, or horseback riding. Rent a kayak from the Crazy Woman Kayak Company. Or just shop at the Crazy Woman Trading Company. The legend of Crazy Woman lives on, and that's the story of how she, the wife and mother who never left her children's last place of rest, ended the feud between Jeremiah Johnson and the Crow tribe in a way that no one could have predicted. Thank you for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel for new videos every week or two, and see the description below for a list of books, films, and online resources featured in this video.